started this fun little Friday format a week ago, not about to let it go. Plain and simple, it's a handful of things I'd like to see. In this case, things I'd like to see Sunday in Las Vegas. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I'd like to see Isaiah Loudermilk become a thing. And not just because I really like him. I've not seen someone get less reward for more work, for more of a healthy attitude and approach than the man that they call 2H. He's apparently going to get some snaps at outside linebacker whenever the situation calls for sealing the edge on the rush, but he's earned his playing time regardless of who's in and who's out. That's why you're seeing, and you've seen, the steady rotation up front where Cam Hayward or Keanu Benton will come off and he'll go on. Besides, if he happens to have a good game against the Raiders, it'll probably mean that right outside linebacker wasn't the disaster that it might be. I'd like to see, or I should actually say I'd love to see Jaylen Warren follow through on an encouraging week of practice and even more encouraging words directly from him, expecting that he should be ready. Now, maybe it'll be another case as it was earlier in the season where he's deemed ready, he gets the helmet, and then he's utilized only sparingly. You know what? I'll take Jaylen sparingly. I'll take that over 2nd and 9 runs from Najee Harris or 3rd and 8 runs from practice squad dudes. When people say that George Pickens is the only playmaker on the Steelers offense, they're leaving out not only Justin Fields, who should be pretty obvious in that category, but also Jaylen. I'd like to see George make, let's say, 6 or 7 catches on 8 or 9 targets for like 85 or 90 yards. Do his job, block, don't complain, don't slam your helmet into the turf, don't try to rip somebody else's helmet off, and then stand there after the game at your stall like everybody else and talk about how nice it was to beat the Raiders. And be really, really boring. Don't earn a headline. Don't earn a headline good or bad. I'd like to see, this is almost at the top of my list, Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, and all concerned acknowledge once and for all, not through words, but through actions, that Pat Freiermuth is a premier pass-catching tight end in the NFL. Even as I use that phrase, I can feel the eyeballs rolling because you haven't seen it. You know why you haven't seen it? Why I haven't seen it? It's because they haven't seen it, because they haven't tried it. You're the ones who entered the season without a WR2, knowingly entered the season without a WR2. And you're the ones who in turn paid Freiermuth unimaginable gobs of money based on what you say your evaluation of his potential is. And yet you go through an entire first half against the Cowboys and don't target him a single time, while instead trying to throw deep for Darnell Washington on basically just a straight line route, while trying to connect with Connor Hayward and setting aside the tight ends, trying to throw to Van Johnson, throwing underneath to Calvin Austin, which is that's the pass you want your tight end catching. You have him, you employ him, use him. But at the very tippy top of this list, and do not act surprised by this, I want to see Fields just say, I want to see Fields say to everybody afterward, that stuff you were thinking, that script that you thought might be playing out in practice or once Russell Wilson came back, Nope, my job. Not because he ekes it out, not because he's younger, but on merit. Take it. It's sitting there. Imagine the difference that makes not only for the 2024 Steelers, but possibly for the 2025 and 2026. I'm not predicting it. I might not even be expecting it. But the segment's about what I want to see. That one doesn't even have a good runner-up. When we come back, J1Q.
Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454.
Today's J1Q comes from Teresa. And before I even read what she's got, let me tell you a little bit about Teresa, because we communicate on football quite a bit. You know who Teresa is? Teresa is that pitcher who's on the mound and bases are loaded and the catcher is putting down two fingers. Catcher wants the curve. Teresa shakes her head. Catcher then does, 3 fingers and a thumb and a wiggle or something else. And Teresa says no. She brings the heat. That's what she does. My favorite thing about the feedback that I get from her J1Q, is, DK, I'm sorry, but it is just poor front office management on the Steelers' part to put the team in a position where they are solely reliant on one player that they knew had maturity problems. How do you put your franchise in this position when this outcome was totally foreseeable? You know, as much as I've spoken and written about George Pickens, I've never worded it quite like that. But she painted the black at 101.2, because that's actually going at a root cause rather than after the fact symptoms. The Steelers not only knew what kind of issues they've already had with George and what issues they might have in the future with George, but they acted upon it by changing the leadership in the wide receiver room, by hiring Zach Azzanni, who is very much the in-your-face kind of positional coach that George needs. And it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Azzanni says or does. It doesn't matter what Arthur Smith says or does. It doesn't matter what Mike Tomlin even says or does. Heck, I'm not sure it matters. And think about this from the player dynamic, what his teammates say or do. And as you seem to be suggesting, Teresa, if he's just a guy, or even just a 1A or a 1B out of 2 number ones, maybe you can deal with it. Maybe you can sit him. Maybe you can remind him that everything about his NFL career, chiefly how often he's used, how many targets he gets, and in turn, how many catches and yards and touchdowns he has, it's all team control. All of it. It's not a fair fight. And even if you decide to flip that into, all right, well, I'll just demand a trade, then you become a malcontent, and then your baggage is even greater. And then you lower your price and you Le'Veon Bell your way out of the NFL. There's not an easier point of criticism between Tomlin and Omar Khan than this, than going into this season without a WR2, but also precipitating it. Because remember, it's not just that they didn't go out and get one, it's also that they sent one away. Now, never mind that I like the trade. I like Dante Jackson for Deontay Johnson. I'd make it again. But I sure as heck wouldn't be making it without going and getting another one, without getting a 1A, without getting a 2. They didn't do that. Van Jefferson's price tag is barely over $1 million. That tells you that he's not a 2. He's arguably not a 3. Look around the NFL at the number of offenses that have 3 capable NFL starting wide receivers, all 3 of whom can scare you as they line up. And then look at Jefferson as a 2, and then add in the context that Teresa's giving, and it's not defensible. I don't even know that it's defensible if they remedy it before the trade deadline, because they shouldn't have had to play this many games in this circumstance. I appreciate the question, Teresa. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Flying out to Las Vegas tomorrow. Looking forward to it, not because of Vegas, not my kind of place, but for the football. And make sure you tune in this afternoon as well to the Double Shot of Steelers. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.